them at the end of the session. Thank you so much for obliging. I now welcome you to this webinar. It will be moderated by Professor Dr. Idya Karnasagar, the Senior Director, International Relationship. Professor Idya Karnasagar is currently the International Relationship Senior Director at NITE University, Mangalore, and also an international consultant on food safety. He is in charge of the IP cell of the university, and he has served in the FAO of the United Nations from 2007 to 2014 as a senior fisheries industry officer. Before joining the FAO, he was the National Professor of Indian Council of Agricultural Research and Director of Research at Karnataka Veterinary Animal and Fisheries Science University, India. His major area of research include food safety, risk assessment, molecular detection of foodborne pathogens, virulent factors of pathogens, biocontrol of pathogens associated with food. Over to you, Professor Idya Karnasagar, for the opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Smita. And good morning to all of you. Now, the opening remark will be delivered by our Honorable Pro-Chancellor, Sri Vishal Hegde. But before I hand over the mic to him, I would like to say a few words about this program. Because the DST Technology Enabling Center is conducting this program, and one of our mandate is to connect the academia with the industry. Because we are supposed to mine the technologies that are available with academic institutions and also find out what are the research requirements of the industry and try to match these and try to see how research outputs from the universities and academic institutions can reach the industry. So in this connection, we have chosen the topic of food industry. That is because India being primarily an agricultural country, food is a very important item in our economy. And now the data shows that our domestic retail industry is worth 900 million US dollars. And food industry is accounting for about 14% of the national GDP and 13% of exports. So it's very important for the nation's economy and also for creating employment for the people. But the food industry is undergoing rapid change, and the consumer requirements are also changing. Now, with urbanization, the demands of the consumers are increasing. We need more of foods with a longer shelf life and ready to cook, ready to eat foods. So the demands are changing, and consumers are also expecting to know where the food is coming from. So we need to have traceability, say, from the farm to the table. So we are responding by developing new products. We are seeing so many new products coming to the market. And we need for this more of research and development and also probably new machineries to process the foods as required by the consumers. One of the important examples of a technological development leading to a food industry, globally competitive food industry is Netherlands, which is a small country with only 17 million people, and most of their land mass is below sea level. But despite that, though they do not have place for production, food production, they are the second largest exporters of food in the world. That is because they have high-tech processing industry, which is adding value to a lot of these food products. So with this example, I think we need to also see how we can take the Indian food industry, processing food industry forward and become globally competitive. And industry and academia has to work together in this direction. And this is the reason we chose the food industry to start with. To open this session, we have our Honorable Pro-Chancellor, Sri Vishal Hegde, who is an industrialist himself. So he is the director of the industry that is producing automobile components and exporting. So he is a management expert himself, and he knows the real requirements of industry as well as academia. And as Pro-Chancellor of the university, he has been a leading philanthropist, educational philanthropist. And he is also spearheading many of the activities like in business incubator. So he is leading the Atal incubator at NITE University, and he is going to tell us more about the various institutions in NITE and these incubators. Over to you, sir. I would welcome you for this program.
Good morning to all the participants, and thank you, Dr. Karuna Sagar, for the introduction. I hope I'm audible to all of you all.
Yes.
Okay. This is a very new experience, at least for me, where we are inaugurating a webinar and we are having a lot of dignitaries who are related to industry. As Dr. Karuna Sagar said, NITE University and NITE Education Trust has taken some baby steps in the directions of having incubators in its various campuses. NITE University today is among the top 75 of all universities in the country. And this is a proud achievement to all of us at NITE. As some of you all would know and some of you all may not, we are operating out of 3 campuses. Our health sciences and research campus is in Derlakatte. We have a technology and management campus in NITE and a technology and management campus at Bangalore. Overall, NITE has around 25,000 students and about 5,500 teaching and non-teaching staff. But coming to the point of today's webinar, where industry and academia, can they work together? This is a point that is often discussed. You know, many people make a statement that educational institutions are not up to the expectations of industry. But having a little experience both in industry as well as management of educational institutions, my point of view is we should come together, and this global pandemic has given all of us an opportunity to come together. The industries today are looking at cost saving. So instead of opening up research centers to solve the problems in industry, especially industries like food, which definitely require research, these research initiatives can be outsourced to educational institutions. And educational institutions today are capable of doing this research. Huge investments are going into research, and the government is also making it mandatory for educational institutions to come out with research. So if industry cooperates with educational institutions, does some hand-holding, informs the educational institutions what sort of research is required, I'm sure educational institutions can step up. Educational institutions bring to the table a very, very fertile mind. If you look at our students, they come with absolutely no prefixed notions, unlike many of us who are in industry. So I'm sure problem solving is going to be very, very easy when we bring in these young educational minds into the research forums. And I'm sure many problems of industries can be sorted out. The government also has definitely understood that there is an opportunity for educational institutions to contribute for the development of industry. That's when they came out with this program of the Atal Incubation Center. This is an absolutely wonderful initiative by the government. If you look at it, it's structured in such a way that it starts right from schools. The Atal Tinkering Labs are established in many schools in India now. From the Atal Tinkering Lab, they have gone to the innovation laboratories in educational institutions which are engineering or university driven. From there, they have gone to the incubators where such ideas which have been nurtured in schools and colleges can ultimately come out as products. I would just like to say a few things about the incubation centers. There is a notion going out there that these incubators are mainly for people who want to set up new industries, who have ideas. Yes, definitely the main thrust would be for people who want to set up industries. But I'm sure even existing industries, I can see a few of you all here who are part of food industry. I'm sure y'all can as well come into these incubators. Y'all can set up small companies or extensions of your existing companies in these incubators. And once you come there, many of your problems of research and development can be done from there, because you all will get in touch with students, you all will get in touch with very bright young minds. And I'm sure with a little bit of handholding from y'all, these bright young minds will not disappoint y'all. As you all are on campus, another long-standing demand of industry that is bringing students in par with industry expectations can also be done simultaneously. I wouldn't want to talk much because you all have a long seminar ahead. But one thing, as I close, I want to sincerely request all people who are part of industry, who are participating in this webinar, the doors of NITTE are open for you all. Don't worry about the costs. Don't worry about the financial implications. Come on to the campus. We will welcome you with open arms. Our teaching faculty, our research equipment, our space will be given to you all. And once you all are on campus, I'm sure we can all work together and bring industries and education institutions close to one another, which is the need of the hour today. Thank you all for listening to me, and I'm sure this disruption in the pandemic will end soon, and all of us will be able to meet and take this initiative forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your gracious presence and presentation, and the open arm invitation for the industry to come into academia. I'm sure it will solve several of local issues, and there's no point in waiting for anybody to come and solve our problems. This initiates us seeking solutions for our problems. Thank you, sir. Next, I have immense pleasure and pride in introducing our Director R&D to the audience, Professor Dr. Indrani Karunasagar. Professor Dr. Indrani Karunasagar is currently the Director of Research and Development, NITTE deemed to be University, and she is also the Director of NUCSAR, which is the NITTE University Center for Science Education and Research. She is the Director of UNESCO Microbial Resource Center for Marine Biotechnology and has had her postdoctoral research in University of Stirling, UK, University of Maryland, USA, University of Würzburg, Germany, and so forth. She has several awards to her credit, some of them eminent ones from the Government of India, our Rafi Ahmed Kidwai Award from the Indian Council of Agricultural Research for Directorship of UNESCO Center. She has also served FAO, WHO as expert on meeting microbial risk assessments. Over to you, ma'am. She will be speaking on the role of DST New Tech. Thank you.
A very good morning to all of you. As our Pro-Chancellor mentioned, we are going through difficult times. But what is the DST?
Madam, kindly unmute your microphone.
Yeah, it is unmuted. Are you able to hear?
We still can't hear you, ma'am.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you now.
Okay. The Technology Enabling Center has been set up by the Department of Science and Technology, and we consider it as one of our prestigious awards, as a very limited number of institutions in the country. I do not know why there is a problem. Are you able to hear now?
Yes, ma'am. Please kindly continue.
I think Okay. So, a very good morning, all of you. So, the Department of Science and Technology has set up the Technology Enabling Center. And to me, this is one of the prestigious awards that we have got in the university from the Government of India. This is finally going to help us look at translational research, a word that we have been hearing very often, but to facilitate it, the Department of Science and Technology, through the coordinators, Dr. Anita, and through the scientist, Dr. Pulicherla, came forward to support us through various stages when it was highly competitive to get selected. And if today we can host a program and bring industry and academia together, it is an event that befits the mandate of the Technology Enabling Center. Now, many of the issues that have been raised by food and nutrition security challenges are inherently interdisciplinary, they are multi-sectoral, and of course, culturally entrenched. Now, if we look at the FAO definition of food security, when all people, all of the time, have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and of course, nutritious food that meets their dietary requirements, and food preferences for an active and healthy life, the purpose of food security is achieved. Having said that, what we need to now look at is innovative solutions which are healthy and sustainable. During COVID times, what have we learned? That there are chronically hungry people, that people are suffering from micronutrient deficiencies, people have very limited access to food, rapid food price rise, and the inflation that follows, as well as, of course, the big migrant populations that we have seen. And therefore, the role of research in global food and nutrition security comes in a way to address challenges that will arise from time to time. When we talk about food security, we don't talk only of satisfying the hunger. We need to remember that in developed countries, there are problems associated with eating unhealthy food, eating food that is leading to deficiencies, obesities, and consequent health problems. And therefore, to address all of these kind of issues, to have foods that go through the entire food system, right through the basic stage of raw material collection until a final product that meets not just the food security, but nutritional security, we have the food industry answering them. Towards this, we know that there are many issues that come in the way of addressing the problems of the industry. When we talk about the challenges, all this can be addressed because a lot of food production that happens also gets wasted due to overproduction. So can there be situation of better preservation? Can more healthy food be prepared to suit the palate as well as to suit the nutritional deficiencies, which may be, in the form of addressing a vegan or a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian? Can we have safe food readied? Safety can be from the point of view of biological safety, keeping it free from pathogens, or safety can be in the form of seeing that adulterants don't creep into the food. Many times it is not deliberately that an adulterant comes in, but identifying its presence and being scientific about it is equally important. We should not become over-diagnostic in trying to look for any adulterants in food, which sometimes becomes the case and leads to a political upheaval in many instances. We've all heard about the famous issue related to say, some of the chemicals in Maggi noodles, or we have heard about the, bromates in bread, or we have heard about the formaldehyde in fish. Yes, it is better to be wary. It is better to develop diagnostic systems that would help us, help the industry to look at the practical levels. We cannot say we will do away with everything that is required, which can creep in during the production line when it goes through. And one of the best examples probably was some of the antibiotic residues that in fisheries it was oft spoken about. The industry had a lot of rejections that came about due to the presence of certain antibiotics and the metabolites. And it was realized that many rejections which happened due to semicarbazole, one of the metabolites, was actually being naturally produced when a material was canned. Now, how did this come about? It was through research in the laboratories. So it became therefore imperative that the industry and academia come together. For all of this and more, we need to understand from the industry what their needs are. Doing research for the sake of research and getting excitement out of it is, yes, a very nice cup of tea, but also addressing issues that the industry needs us to sometimes work in a very rapid manner to help them is as important. And therefore, the basic research and the applied research in the form of translational science has been the mandate of many agencies that are today looking at very rapid research. COVID times has taught us many lessons, and to address them all, food probably is one of the most important. And therefore, we need to see how we as a university, we as a technology enabling center of the Department of Science and Technology help, yes, the entire country, but more importantly, the state of Karnataka, for which we have been chosen and placed here. We have been very, I should say, affectionately addressed by the Pro-Chancellor, who with open arms has invited anyone desirous of placing their problems to come forth, discuss, to use the facilities for anything tangible that is possible. Yes, everything comes sometimes with a small price. One needs to pay for any services sought. And towards this, the Technology Enabling Center is willing to go that extra mile to give a small funding also to help you, carry out your needs in a manner in which we can have a win-win situation, not just for Karnataka, the country, but for the globe as well. So food is a requirement all over the world, but we need to look at local issues. We need to look at local solutions. Many solutions can be picked up by observation of what goes on in and around a particular person's environment. And the DST is looking to have practical solutions, sometimes picked up from practices that have been in place, and make them scientifically viable. With these few words, I would like to place on record my thanks to the Department of Science and Technology for reposing faith in us, and Dr. Anita in particular, who has been forging all these centers to go ahead and help the country. Thank you very much, Dr. Smita, and I hope the industry and academia collaborations will definitely take off from the beginnings that are happening in the last few days. Thank you very much.
I now call upon our first food industry representative, Mr. Giridhar Prabhu. Mr. Giridhar Prabhu, are you online? He is the director of Achal Industries Private Limited. From a small beginning, it has grown to its present status of being the most modern integrated cashew kernel manufacturing plant in India. Its unique distinction is that it has developed and evolved in a niche segment and not as a mass commodity supplier. He has been in the trade for 43 years and excellence in cashew industry, and he says he's still learning. Achal stands first in cashew manufacturing industry among 70 such industries in India, and it is the world's first ISO 22000 cashew factory. Over to you, Mr. Giridhar Prabhu. Yeah, I can't.
Ma'am, good morning to you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Mr. Prabhu, we can
Okay.
hear you.
This is a wonderful time for me to get associated with the NITE University. I am grateful to Vishal Hegde for the introduction and the open policy for collaboration with industry. I have been in the campus at least, I think 5 times and been with the students there. And it's been a pleasure to work with Dr. Vinay Hegde on the Coastal Agenda Task Force back in 2001, when we delivered a lot to the city of Mangalore and coastal Karnataka. About Achal, thank you for the introduction. As a cashew firm, we have been associated with all the research institutes of India, primarily the director of cashew research in Puttur, the CFTRI in Mysore, NITK, and the Cochin Universities for Fisheries Technology, the 2 major trade association, Cashew Export Promotion Council of India and the Karnataka Cashew Manufacturers Association, have led a lot of activity into science and technology. I'm very glad that we are in proximity now, and we will try to get into, or rather we'll get into the domain of what industry institution is really about. So at Achal, we are having more than 90 firsts in the world cashew industry. Unfortunately, it's all here and it's not documented. So one of the major issues that would come up is that Team NITE or any of the colleges or the universities or whatever or around, we must encourage students to do basically studies enough to say that all the facts and figures and documentation comes out clearly, so that it goes to the next step we call as the formulation or the approach to a problem. And I can say that I have to thank Indrani about this, that she has made it very clear that in India we have a mix-up of words. So basically we have a problem, we have 1,000 issues. We have one problem, but we have 1,000 issues, and we have conflicts. So problems need to be solved, and if they are in the domain of social or scientific, we need to put it to experts like Indrani that they evolve by properly formulating the nature of the problem, going deep into it and bring up a solution. We cannot expect instant solution, but most of the issues can be resolved primarily interdisciplinary, self-discipline or discipline. And nowadays we call it a social, economic and political and all mix-up of the both. So communication is a major development now, that we can communicate. Communication could be a one-way street or a two-way street, but what is important is to have the connection. And this is what Achal did. We connected. So one of the first developments that we had when we started the industry, we are on record to have the 4th major process innovation for roasting of cashews in the world. It was so simple that my father discovered that it is possible to roast by steam, and my mother cooked it for him on a normal idli vessel. He took a kilo of raw cashews and asked her to roast it there. And he jumped at the success, quietly went it and tested it at the factory we were working, and no one knew about it. On December 1, 1981, we developed the technology with only 40,000 rupees. On the third day, it was a grand success, and we grew exponentially in a new factory. And 1/3 of India and 2/3 of the world production now is based on steam roasting. A small step, a very nominal amount, but all it required was good observation. He connected. It was not it was a discovery, not an invention by us, because someone came in and walked into his cabin and said, "This is possible." And he developed it on his own, and I was with him then. I was just 20 years old. So now we are 43rd year in that technology. It had a tremendous impact on how the women who handled the raw cashew roasted, the way they did it changed, their productivity improved, and that was the major revolution that got initiated. But believe me, I don't even have a single page of written documentation on this. So I welcome the students of NITTE to talk about it. My mother is still there. She can narrate the experience, and I'm wanting this to be known to the world. Because when we do a good thing, it is not about patenting or anything. It's a good thing and it will spread. People will copy you, people will duplicate you, triplicate you. Let it happen. Let the world be prosperous. That was our philosophy. The second major innovation, which involved a laboratory, in 1991, I got an email. In those days, there were no emails but telexes. Understand the change now. Today, in an instant, what I talk is going to reach probably 10,000 people by afternoon. But at that time, we had a telex. I came in the morning and I got it from 3 different places in the world: Japan, UK, and USA. I was in the Cashew Export Promotion Council of India as a member of the committee. And the chairman told me, "Giridhar, this is a need of the hour. We have to get out of tins." And you know what a tin is like, it's a metal can. And I can show it to you right here, because in India, we still use 1 million of these cans. Can you see? 1 million cans are being sold every year. But the world wanted it in polymers, and we did not have anything then. The polymer technology in India was at its baby steps. So the CEPCI gave us a mandate, meaning to ourselves, that we produce a pouch equal to say that we have to do it. So the Cashew Export Promotion Council of India gave a mandate to the Indian Institute of Packaging, Bombay. And I was part of the project. I led the project. And 2.5 years down the line, we were still struggling that we couldn't deliver. The issue was not that we couldn't put it in a polymer, but commerce came in. They wanted 15,876 kgs to go into a container. Otherwise, it wouldn't be viable. So a Dutch company with a South African subsidiary came up with a machine, and an Italian company offered me a machine. And in the 4th year, we could ship out the first container of cashews in plastic pouches. Even today, a plastic pouch is costing us only 20 rupees for 22.68 kilos. A tin is costing 70 rupees. So the project cost 6 lakhs of rupees. I spent my own money, about 12 lakhs of rupees, for all the activity that is associated with it, making it possible to reach that stage. But believe me, the total saving of the industry in the first year was as high as 40 crores. And even that saving is continuing now. What I'm trying to say is that innovation can be very simple. It can be very effective. It has to be driven by passion. It cannot be without that. It has to be driven with a commitment. But mostly it is driven by need. If a customer asks you to do it, you do it. You have to do it. Otherwise, you won't get your next contract. So industry is driven mostly by need-driven aspects, and all the larger aspects that Karunasagar and Indrani, they are in the social realm, and social innovation is going to be vast every year. The whole world has enough food to feed itself 1.5 times. It is only a management and a distribution issue. 1,70,000 crores of rice and feed and groundnuts, everything is lying with government agencies. 40 crore people are not having their second meal in the evening. It's only a distribution problem. We can solve it in 1 week. It's a commitment. But let us get to these challenges that Achal is now, for the 10th year running, we don't use a single chemical pesticide or any chemicals within our campus. And believe me, it's pretty hard work. We have to have 10 times the more people than any other factory just to keep ourselves clean. And we are organic 100% now. We have 6,101 farmers under management, and we are the largest organic exporters from India to the European and Japanese markets. So that is what we call specialty or niche. But India, the cashew market is 20,000 crores. And you will believe me or not, there is not a single industrial research paper on record on industry. Now, whether it is an institution issue or whether it is an industry issue, we have 300 bankruptcies in the last 5 years. So a bankrupt going industry is looking for survival. Only a thriving industry with 25% profit or 10% profit or capable of doing that is capable of investing in resources in research or development. But believe me, we are good copycats. Anything that is happening good, we just buy it and use it. So there is a transformation happening, that we have moved from manual to creative automation. A lot of the equipment got built by ourselves. 4 people in the industry got together and built a peeling machine, and we all bought it. So in NITK, we did one very small workshop. This was about 12 years ago. And brightest of the industry and most of the good businessmen I assembled in the science, and Dr. Singh was the head of the institution, and he was very eager. He came to us in the chamber, let us do something. 3 professors in chemical engineering, I requested them, look, we are humble people. We don't know technology, but we are having the most inefficient dryer in the system. All our ovens are outdated. We have all adapted by very ordinary methods, but we still do a good job. Possibly we make some money. And he introduced the topic of heat transfer. And believe me, I didn't know it was a chemical engineering discipline. I thought it was physics. Because I did put a fire underneath and fired it up. Within 1 hour, he explained the concept of a standard dryer. And the next step was again steam, because we were anyway having the steam, we were having idle. I had 4 chimneys in my factory, putting fire from firewood and burning it up, and a smokestack. So Professor Kamath led that workshop, and within 3 hours, within 7 months, a dryer which was standard in Ahmedabad, one of our units, they brought it in, and he connected it to the steam with a simple steam exchanger. He sold 100 units in just matter of 7 months. I have got 14 of them in my system. It is zero cost technically. We reduce our cost to next to nothing, but also eliminated all the defects in the system in terms of grades, because earlier we used to have scotched grades, which means a little burnt cashews which are selling at lesser prices in the market. Again, a very simple innovation. NITK was open. We went there. It was connect. It was not about communication or spending. And I would say that the industry would have at least saved about 8 to 10 crores of rupees every year on fuel costs. Also gained about 10 to 20 crores of rupees in realization. But the moment we complete these processes, it sort of vanishes into saying, okay, it's fine, what next? So the next project that we had was all about one of our most it's a bugging problem. There is a bug called Tribolium castaneum, and it doesn't escape us from the environment. It can come in and settle into our factories anytime. And that the problem has been solved by fumigation. And fumigation, is using of a fumigant, aluminum phosphide, for instance. So we know all about this, but now the issue is about how we can sustain. And one aspect that I should tell is Achal has been always open to scientists to come and view, inspect, and do whatever they would think they want. But I still do not have a laboratory. I outsource my testing to laboratories which are approved by our customer or us. But in the case of Cashew, I must have NITE institution open a center in my factory. For the simple reason, the transportation of samples and going to you, it won't work for in-process innovation. You have to do the tests in the factory. And that is a challenge. And I cannot afford to invest in laboratories of that scale. So one of the collaborations could be that I'm always open for studies, and in the event of innovation, and I can send to all of you whatever papers or whatever issues that I have raised till date. Give me some 2 weeks time. It is up to NITE or any institution or any student to begin the collaboration. And believe me, Cashew is a fantastic place to learn. It's a virgin field, and it can get into all the disciplines. The traceability Dr. Karunasagar taught about, we have been having since 1975, but my competitors don't have traceability. You buy a cashew from me, I will tell the tree which it comes from. We have done it. Only question is whether it is replicable or whether it is necessary. My customers want traceability, I give them traceability. But if you are looking at an industry, you have to look at it, all its weaknesses, strengths, opportunities, and threats. And cashew has got the most fantastic potential for global expansion. It is a nutritious tree nut. It will solve the food security issues, because 1 kilo of cashew nuts comes from a tree. It means only 250 grams of kernels, but you have 1 billion trees and food. Rice, sugarcane, and all the food grains consume huge amounts of water, and this is coming from dry land. So it's up to the whole world to choose what it wants, and nowadays it is called as the value chain. The customer pays for the value that they ask for. So my time was 15 minutes. I can go on for 10 hours. That's another seminar specific to cashew. I'm always available and open for specifics on cashews. Cashew basically is also a food. It also develops into a snack, and it is in the category of what is called as dried fruits and nuts. And one more possibility we see in nutrition is cashew is not taken by many people who have diabetes. The Madras Diabetic Foundation, again a CEPC project, we ran the project for 3 years and found that consuming 30 grams per day would be safe for diabetes, but it has not grown. Since NITE is also in the medical field, I would say that a medical research program can be initiated, whether a cashew product is good after cancer therapy. People lose 8 or 10, 12 kgs of weight by sheer fear. Cashew is a little exciting, and probably if you are looking at saying cashews consumed can prevent cancer, it is a very big open question. But I would say cashew can be very good therapy because you enjoy eating cashew. And that is what I would say that I'll conclude now. I'm open to questions for the next. I'm here with you till 12:30. Thank you. Hello?
Thank you,
Was I
sir,
heard?
for the wonderful presentation. Your innovations on steam roasting, packaging, pest and organic production and dryers, and the story was very interesting. I now hand over the session to Professor Indrani Karunasagar for an announcement. Thank you so much.
It's really no session at all. I am extremely delighted that the coordinator of the technology enabling centers in the country Dr. Anita Agarwal from the DST has joined quite some time ago, and she missed the early part when we could, of course, pay, I should say, our gratitude to the DST for supporting such a venture where all industries can be helped through this center that they are supporting in a big way. Dr. Anita, welcome, and I'm sure everybody looks forward to your brief concluding remarks at the end of all the presentation. It does spill over the time that has been allotted to each of the industrialists, but this could never ever be taken as a regular program spoken on the stage where a lot of time goes on in decorative events. But here is a galaxy of people who are going to speak their experience, their problems, and with already one presentation, we've seen how we can come together with Mr. Giridhar Prabhu and do a lot for the industry. Located here in Mangalore, we will need to see that we help all our industrialists to not go far and wide in search of solutions or help that they might seek to. In the bargain, we will be learning from them much the same way as they will take pleasure in teaching us the problems for which we will try to jointly look at solutions. Thank you very much. Yes, Smita, you may carry on now.
Thank you, ma'am. I now call upon Mr. Sanat Kumar. Mr. Sanat Kumar from Ubic Food India Private Limited. He's in charge of the quality assurance, and his specialization is production, increased production efficiency with minimum manpower. That sounds interesting. He also has experience in warehouse management, hygiene practices. Welcome, Mr. Sanat Kumar, and kindly take over the session.
Hello, I'm audible. Hello.
Yes, yes, you're audible, please. Yes, thank you.
Thanks to Anita University and especially Mamta Madam. Okay. And myself, Sanat, I'm heading quality assurance. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. Right now, I'll take only 10 minutes because the time is running very fastly. Thing is that I'm talking about that confidential reporting system. I think many of us are very new to the subject. It's a part of a BRC system. It's a British Retail Consortium. It's a GFSI, that is Global Food Safety Initiative System, which required a confidential reporting system every company should have. Hello?
Yeah, we are able to hear you. Please go on.
Okay. Thing is that I request the students to create an app so that the company management, the top management should able to access what the lower category people are suffering. Example, that product safety is there, and integrity and quality and legality. These are the things to be added in this app so that the people who are really facing issues, so that they can approach very confidentially, so that the management thinks about that and try to resolve the problem. And generally, we have a lot of other issues with the material supply. Hello? Sorry?
We can hear you. Kindly continue.
And see, generally, Unibic cookies is famous, and we are #1 in cookies world. Actually, we started at 2004 in Bangalore, the collaboration with the Australian people. So, in 15 years in this industry, we faced a lot of issues with the material, actually, with the product safety. Thing is that you know that many of the raw material comes with a packaging support, which is very fragile, actually, like the plastic. So if they are not done rightly to the packaging system, will face a lot of issues. So we have only the metal detector right now in the system. So it will detect the metal. And we need to know that any innovation can be done to check other FBC, that is foreign body, so that it will control some foreign related object to the product. So regularly I'm handling a complaint, the consumer complaint. See, we used to getting threads and this plastic wrappers in the product. See, generally we'll not see a small this one like cashews and all. We are not saving much because that the content is in a bigger size. So we need to know that any system is there so that it will eliminate, and we can build a OPRP system so that it will control this kind of issues, so that we can offer a safe product to the consumer. So that I need to know about this one from your university. Anybody wish to work with us, so they can approach me. I can also give some detailing and compliance, which we are getting regularly from market, so that we can build a system so that we'll get to deliver a safe product. Nowadays, the people are asking for the safe product. Initially, they are asking only the product which serves. Now they're asking the safe products. Try to build a system so that it will give a safe product, and it will give a market so that there is no much foreign body complaint to the product. Okay, these two I need to know. One is the confidentially reporting system app and this FBC controlling. So anybody wants to wish and work with us, so they can approach us. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Sanak. It was very interesting, and we have noted down all the points that you have made. And as our previous speaker, Mr. Girdhar Prabhu, had so nicely put it, that we do not have instant solutions, and communication is the way forward. So learning is constant, and we are now aware of several of the issues with the food industry, and we will try to attempt to solve some of them at least. So thank you so much for participating, and your points are noted. We
Thank
now move to the next resource person, Dr. Pradeep Kani. Dr. Pradeep Kanjige. Dr. Pradeep Kanjige is the Director of Research and Development of Cafe Coffee Day since 2012. His responsibilities include new beverage development, new coffee blend development, plantation-related research, roasteries and production unit. He has got his PhD on hexachlorocyclohexane in coffee plantations in Western Ghats ecosystem. He has got his PhD on greenhouse effects on growth and yield of cotton from Tuskegee University, US. It's a pleasure to have you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. I think I'm audible to everybody. Hello.
Yes,
Am I-
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
Dr. Pradeep, you're audible.
Yeah. Good morning. Rather, good afternoon. And as everybody is pointing out, on the positive note, this COVID has brought in and has opened up some new avenues for interaction with the stalwarts of the industries. And I'm so grateful to Nitte University for having made me a part of this luminary circle and inviting me for this webinar. I'm so grateful to you, all of you, sir. First of all, I'd like to give a brief on CCD, that is Cafe Coffee Day, wherein we work. And, many of you are aware of the rise of Coffee Day. And in 1996, we started our first cafe. And since then, we are in the forefront of F&B segment in Karnataka as well as in India. the hallmark of our achievement is, till then, coffee was just a kind of after drink. After you eat your food, you just drink your coffee and go. But just like how kids drink their milk, they eat their food, drink their milk and go. But coffee as such, as a product, was never being enjoyed as a beverage. And we brought a new culture into India, I can say into India, that coffee itself is a enjoyable beverage, and we serve that beverage in the most friendly, good ambience. So coffee got a real push up as a beverage and as in a kind of lifestyle beverage. So having said this, in the last 15 to 20 years, from one cafe in Brigade Road to 1,800 cafes across India, we have to serve not just the beverages, as well as food. And in the course of this long journey, we have encountered quite a few very specific problems. And since I am interacting with thousands, I hope I am interacting with thousands of students here, I'd like to put forth what are the problems we face and still facing, and where exactly you researchers, academia, can pitch in to solve these kinds of problems. So I don't want to take more than whatever time is allotted to me, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. So I'll start. The first problem is lack of market research, market information for us. Let me tell you, if you are opening up a production center, you know where to open and everything. But if you are opening up a restaurant, and if it is standalone restaurant, then you definitely know what kind of customers you are looking at. Because if it's Mangalore, you know, you can sell bajil and curds, and that's because by our experience, we know which client we are looking at. But if you want to move to the next level, go to the next district. If you want to come to my district in Chikmagalur and sell your bajil, it's no-go. So when we started expanding, our problem was no market data available on any of the food and beverages, no authentic data. Definitely what I say is, there cannot be, somebody cannot collect the data and show me, this is where your market is, you go. No, what we want is there a trend going on? Certain times, a trend will be there in the consumer preferences, and can somebody identify that? One small example I'll give you. When we started, the Coffee Board was always, and still is, always propagating pure coffees and Arabica in that. So that's the buzzword. You drink pure coffee. Okay, now, when we started, we launched a new product called liquid coffee in the liquid format with the technology from the CFTRI. And then we were doing pure coffees. Initially, it was okay, everybody appreciated, but the sales were not happening. If it was happening somewhere in Chennai, it was not. It was a no-go in some places like Bangalore. And after 2 months, complaints started creeping in that your coffee is light, your coffee is dark. And then again, we have to get back to the market and see why these kinds of. They said, in our home, when we use coffee powder, it always has chicory. So after launching the product, after 3 months, we have to get back to the drawing board and come up with a chicory blend and relaunch it again. And unfortunately, not only launching, when you add chicory to coffee, it brings lots of other issues, including shelf life. So it's like starting a new product altogether. If I had some data that for this market, chicory is a must, then I wouldn't have started with the, no, I'm not saying there can be 100% perfect prediction of the next market, but there is ample opportunity for the students to get into this market research trend, find out the trend and what, and trend keeps changing. Now, since COVID times, there will be food and beverages will undergo lots and lots of changes because money power, but purchasing power has gone down. So now if somebody can predict, see, this is where your chances are there, then a small entrepreneurs will be very, very helpful. Otherwise, many of our research researchers personnel is a scarce thing. They'll be doing research on some products which may not see the light of the day, or even if they see the light of the day, they will be unsuccessful. So market research is something which institutions should always focus on. Give some basic data, then it's left to the entrepreneur to take it forward. That's one thing I would like to stress upon. The second thing would be, okay, once I identify the product, then how do I take it to the next level? That is, how do I do it in the lab? Take ample different versions of the same product, like coffee, tea, or all beverages. I'm talking about from my background. So you have to give so many samples, produce so many samples. But in doing so, we'll be facing so many issues because there are no rapid analysis kits, rapid kits for analysis of so many things. For example, even now, when you buy a kg of coffee, you are not sure, coffee powder, you are not sure how much of chicory is there in that. We don't have an equipment which measures percentage of chicory and percentage of coffee. So students, I mean, if some student is there, he can work on this. There is ample opportunity there. So what usually the traders, they can add more chicory because chicory is cheaper and sell as coffee. There is no identify. The only indirect way of identifying the percentage is you do caffeine analysis, and we have to go through either Geldal method or HPLC, which takes more than 3-4 days. So if I am doing that in the lab, if I do it for a set of 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 samples, then a rapid kit, which immediately says, at least it says this is the percentage of chicory, this is the percentage of coffee you have in the lab, then that really helps me to hasten up the product development. So this is where some opportunities are there for the institutions and for the students. And then we really need rapid kits for pesticides. Forget about enumeration of the pesticide, but at least presence or absence of pesticides in a particular raw material, or heavy metal, presence of heavy metals. If there is some rapid kit, that would help the development of new products, makes it easier. So that is the second point I would like to bring it to your notice. And also now, this is something very exciting. Internet has opened up so many new avenues. Can we adopt that into our product development also? This is exciting. Now look, we have all the food industries are aware of this. There is E-Tongue and E-Nose, which analyzes the flavors and everything. In coffee industry, that is that's the, I mean, very latest equipment anybody can have. The problem is it is so expensive, costs you, you have to pay through the nose, maybe 15, 20, could be 3-4 crores altogether. And even research institution can, like Balehonnur, Central Coffee Research Institution, cannot, I mean, they have it, but on daily basis, they cannot operate because it really needs specialized, highly specialized scientists to draw a conclusion using the data. Now, a small industrialist, small hotelier, if he wants to come up with some food or some beverage, he cannot have it or take his sample to Bangalore and get it analyzed. The easiest way is, this is exclusively for sensory evaluation, I'm telling you. The easiest way would be, can we use the internet to do this? I, sitting in Chikmagalur, just buy a sensor which measures most probably the color, the aroma or consistency of the product, and that will be transmitted to some office, some sophisticated lab in Bangalore or even in NITE. And you immediately do whatever analysis you can do and get back to me online. This is the product, and this deviates so much from the standard, and how much I can move by changing ingredients or something near to the standard. So this is where that gap between scientist and the actual product development guy, a small time entrepreneur, can come close to the scientist. So if somebody can develop these kinds of sensors, which can measure aroma, which can measure taste in pure digital form, then it will be making all this product development to that extent very easy. So that's one point I would like to stress upon. And then that's one more. After product, I mean, we identify the product and do the research in the lab and come up with the product. Now the processing. It has, usually food processing, you have, from my point of view, I mean, for a beverage, we have not more than 3 or 4 processing technologies, Tetra Pak or, autoclaving or retorting like this. Okay, in all these cases, what's interesting is, as somebody, Mr. Giridhar was saying, the containers are either PET or glass or cans. None of them are eco-friendly. So there is ample opportunity for the students here. If somebody can come up with a eco-friendly, natural container which can withstand, if not the high temperature levels of a retort, at least there are some beverages which can do cold filling. And a little less stressful treatment for the product. If these containers are can be invented using biodegradable and natural sources, then it should be a boon to our beverages industry, which is grappling with these Tetra Pak issues, disposal of waste material, as well as PET, as well as glass. So this is where we can look into biodegradable, processable containers. Yesterday, I was looking at a video where 2 people from Bangalore, they have come up with a eatable spoon and plates. That's a marvelous for a food and beverages industry, and which is serving for people to go on the go. People buy food and eat it on the go. So this is where they just throw their plates everywhere and all that. But if these plates and spoons are eatable with proper nutrition and taste, if somebody can improve on the taste and also the nutrient levels of these, that will be marvelous. I think this is not a rocket science. You students can do this. So that's a marvelous innovation somebody can come up with. So these are some of the points. But at the end, I would like to stress one more point. Throughout our journey for product development in all these years, we are facing problems with FSSAI. Unless you have an expert lawyer with you who interprets the way you want it, then only you can do the product development. I mean, recently we were working with a sugar-free product using a natural fruit called monk fruit. You must have heard of that. It's monk fruit, which they say the world over, people are talking about it, and we were the first ones to come up with a beverage using a monk fruit. In fact, we started growing it in our farms, thinking that this should be the solution for our sugar replacements. And by the time we came up with the product, the FSSAI says this is not yet approved in the market. So there is a gap between the regulators and the product innovators. And is there any way of bridging that gap using, as some of the learned speakers, just before me was talking about, an app wherein I can directly talk to the FSSAI guy or some relevant guy, asking him, sir, I'm going to start on monk fruit. Is it allowed or not? If you write them, there will be no reply for 3 years. But how to bridge this gap? This is another area wherein institutions can help us to understand FSSAI easily for a layman, for a lay entrepreneur, rather than going through the circuit of legal experts. So I think I made a couple of points which I wanted really to make clear. And I'm very thankful for all of you guys listening to me and giving me this opportunity. I'm thankful. Have a good day.
Dr. Pradeep, that was a wonderful presentation, and you were very eloquent in putting forth the needs of industry of coffee, where quality was an issue, where you needed detection kits for pesticides and maybe detection kits for finding the quantity of chicory along with it. And you also made a very interesting point about containers, which could change the concept of enjoying a cup of coffee where you can eat the cup, so you can have the cake and eat it too. So that was very interesting. And I'm happy to say that on the panel, we have an expert of FSSAI in Professor Dr. Idya Karnasagar. So he has, I'm sure, made a note of your requirement, and maybe you can address, and his expertise can be availed by yourself after this presentation. Thank you so much. I now call upon the next speaker, Dr. Harish Kinilakodi. So it's a pleasure to have you, sir. And I'm particularly impressed by the catchy phrase of the modern kitchen, which says, taste in every bite. That itself invites you to the modern kitchen. And we now have Dr. Harish Kinilakodia, the General Manager of ACE Food Industries. He has a PhD in mining, and it's very interesting to see a change in approach where you mine for precious products in production and supply chain as a general manager today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Smita. And I would like to thank NITTE for organizing this and giving me an opportunity to represent ACE Foods. So yes, as you noted, my specialization and field is completely different. I'm a newbie in this industry. When Mr. Giridhar Prabhu talked about in him his exposure from 1981. I was just born in 82, so I'm really newbie for it. But our director Ranapapai would really show some light on the history of Ace Food and how it has been developed. And since beginning, we have supplied to Cafe Coffee Day also our products, and I think even we have some association with Achal right now also. Talking about the gap between the industry and academia, a couple of points what I have wrote it down, and my recent experience is we're facing issues with the talk. What I could summarize is most of the issues are common: packing, maybe testing, or product development. But in that, some points I would like to also add to it is the non-destructive tests. Since till now we have not done any non-destructive test kind of thing. It's very at the initial stages, and also getting the reports more on real-time basis. So as you know, food industry is all agri produce, and none of them are of the same quality or same. You would try to be consistent in that level, but every batch changes. So there is a need for that, so that we give out consistent product out. Also, the other thing is the testing. As an exporter, you need certain tests to be done for your products, and we don't have accredited or certified laboratories in Dakshin Kannada, where Nitte can be one of those places where you can set up accredited labs, and you can give us certificates, and it will solve a lot of problems, even the transportation. One thing what I've learned in this COVID is earlier the people used to say the world is really small, but now it's more of a localized supply chain, strong supply chain routes rather than centralized one. So that's one of the trend. The other thing what I would like to say is India is not very far from any other developed nation's trend. Say in US or any other place, the entire usually the both parents, if you take an example of a family, parents do work out, and the kids, or their eating habit is more of you get it from out or have a frozen food or something. But what I feel is down the line, 10 years or 5 years down the line, even our culture will change to that, because more people will start working, and kids the cooking habit will be reduced only to weekends rather than whole week. So so that's one thing what we need to focus, as in what as Dr. Indrani Karunasagar said, nutrition value is also one thing that we need to see with the packed food and other things in developed countries, resulting into obesities or any other issues. We can learn from it and need not reinvent the wheel. So we can take some cases from there and try to address it right away when the industry is right and the things come true. Then we are ready with the proper guidelines or proper lab and technology, so that we can give the best out to the public. Then one other thing is till now what we have seen is the packaging material. There is certain studies which says this is good for certain products, but there is no specific studies done on what kind of packaging material qualities should be for certain product to get the higher life and freshness. So that's some things that we are facing here in our industry or in our factory, which is a practical experience that we have faced. But we are addressing it through different offer suppliers and their research contact and other things. But that's one gap that university and industry can come together and try to solve, and have a good idea about these products are the ones which you to have these qualities of packing material in it. So and also, going with the eco-friendly would be great, but that thing is yet to be explored regarding how certain things I don't think we can go eco-friendly because of the nature of the products or the nature how it has to be done or sent. So, but wherever possible, we can definitely go with the eco-friendly one. One, the other thing regarding the students' interaction is, as an industry and university, we can explore of having internship for the students who are in food technology or any other uh, thing. Because when I was in NITK with the mining discipline, I have done that internship, because with the mining, it's not easy to have training or experience. You have to go to that place. I can't get set up a small mine anywhere. Even in NITK, Dr. Shastri has highest he has done is constructing a tunnel, similar to a tunnel in the mining department. But those are not the baby fund that can go away. So, so having said that, internship does really help them to get the practical knowledge and also some idea when they are going into their second year or higher studies, that what needs to be, they can understand the gaps more practically. That's what I'm trying to say. So as even Professor Indrani said, research for the sake of research will not get us anywhere. You'll have, let's say, papers and accolades and all those things, but when rubber meet the road, we don't have any traction there. So that's what my opinion is. And thanks for listening to me. And I hope I've not gone overboard or anything. So, and thank you once again, everyone in the panel and other participants. Thanks for listening, and thank you for giving me an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harish. That was indeed very interesting. And you have made several points, such as the need for having a testing center, which is particularly real time and non-destructive. And you have also expressed your need for the reaction of various packaging material on the freshness and shelf life of food. And you have raised a very interesting point about student internship, where they will get hands-on experience and will be able to connect to the industry better. And maybe as in educational institutions, we can also make industry fit candidates, employable candidates. So thank you so much for making all these suggestions. Your suggestions are well taken and noted. And over a period of time, we will have a long-term interaction with your companies and try to resolve as many issues as possible, practically possible, in the given conditions. Thank you so much. I now move on to the next speaker of the day, Dr. Babu. Dr. Babu is the head of Phytochemistry Division of R&D in Himalaya Drug Company, Bangalore. He has obtained his doctoral degree in CDRI, that is the Central Drug Research Institute at Lucknow. And his doctoral work was on the project of drugs from the sea. And since then, he has worked on phytochemistry, drug discovery, characterization of new bioactive compounds, structural activity relationship, new product development, natural fragrances, flavors, pharmacognosy, tissue culture, biotechnology, name it. The spectra is very wide. It's indeed a pleasure to have somebody with over 25 years of research experience in natural product chemistry amongst us. Over to you, sir. A warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Professor Smita, and good afternoon to everybody. I've been enjoying listening the August gathering here, the experts from industry. First of all, I would like to thank NITE management for organizing this conference. The theme was very interesting because when we say that, academia industry interaction, probably the next 10 minutes, I would like to focus more on that, how this model should actually work. As you all know that I represent Himalaya Company. So we based in Bangalore, and we have more than 100 countries today. So this company was established in 1930, and our core categories are pharmaceuticals and personal care, animal health and nutrition, and baby care. When we talk about academia and industry interaction, because I have been involved in many institutions, okay, and when you see the academia industry collaborations, first of all, I give much more time to the students and farmers. I come in contact with them. So when we look at academia industry interactions, the first is the curriculum, how that we are making the curriculum. It could be any discipline. So how many credits that we are giving to the practical approach versus the theory approach. Say some universities give that 50-50 or 60 theory, 40 credits for the practicals and exposure to industry in terms of interns and all. So probably the mindset has to change. Probably it should be 1:1, or it should be more like 60% of credits to the practical approach, and then the 40 is probably the credits to the theory. Because as we all learning from the the industry experts, the basic need today is the simple solutions. We don't want to complicate the solutions. So what we do in the laboratory, what we do a part of research in the laboratory, has to be successfully converted into a very commercially viable process. So that is where we can see the success. Then how we bring the students into this inculcating the research into their mind. So I have been working with many universities, institutions, and I've been interacting with few of the IITs, and I'm also part of BOS of many universities. So when we look at actually what happens when the students are involved in this kind of research, because they already wanted to do some kind of exciting research, and they will during their 4 years of their tenure, definitely they would like to publish many papers or posters. So then the connection, the gap you will find once they complete the their course. So here basically when we talk about academia industry interaction, when there is a research is going on in a particular laboratory, then the first and foremost important thing is you involve the industry at the very early stage of your research project. It's not the end of the project then where we look at a commercial viability, very industry will come and take this technology. So let us involve the industry at the very beginning stage of the project. And also we should have industry as a guest professor in your faculty. Like, there should be a visiting professors from industries to come and work in the universities. So why I'm saying, when I was interacting with thousands of engineering students, particularly biotechnology, pharmacy students, so we found that they study too much in the subjects, but when they want to apply to the what they have learned and what they want to apply, they have a lot of confusion, lot of doubts in which area I should take. Is it the opportunity versus the passion? So a lot of things come into the picture when students actually have to decide which a topic they have to take it forward. So what we did is, so then we have tried to conduct workshops. Like what we did, our teams of cross-functional teams, we have dedicated 10 weekends, like 10 Saturdays, and we did a workshop for a particular, colleges. Like say one college, probably the anchoring institute, to conduct this workshop. So we have gathered many students from different colleges in Bangalore. Then we have designed a course which can be useful once the students are undergone that course. They will open up their minds whether they want to go into the drug discovery, they want to go into food and nutrition, they want to go into an agriculture sector, they want to go into a biological sector. So it's very clear. So we have made a program in such a way, and then they have undergone, because the topics which we teach in the universities and how these applications to the industries, probably we try to put it these end applications in our workshops. So that workshop keep on going, like Every year we do that workshop. Probably 250 or 300 students have gone through that workshop, and they are very excited and they have chosen their career. This is one of the example which I'm saying. So since I belongs to herbal drug company, and we are experts in natural products, herbals. So we found what is the gap of the resource availability in the academics versus industry's expectations. So we can see the pharmacy, we can see the biotechnology, we can see the MSc Life Sciences, MSc Chemistry, a lot more, even for that matter, chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, all these things. But when we see what is the gap, when the student is coming to the industry, what is exactly the gapping? They need not to be a core in all subjects, but at least they should have some overall exposure. That's why probably in your academic calendar also you have some electives. Okay, so then we have designed a course, a 4-year degree called BTech in Phytopharmaceuticals. So because if you see today, just for information to all the August gathering year, so now the much focus from India point of view is to promote our own traditional medicines or our own the natural products in the form of phytopharmaceuticals. So once this category comes, these are at par with any drug discovery, any pharma products. So this gap we have seen, the research faculty versus the industry's expectations. So we have done designed the course, and some university has come forward, and the course has been launched as 4-year BTech in Phytopharmaceuticals. So this is the one areas which probably the universities and industries have come together and understands what is the gaps that industries expect from the students once they passed out. And coming to the research problems, since DST members also here, see, today we don't have any money problem in the country as far as research is concerned. You have large funds available either through DST, DBT, CSR, SERP, UGC, whatnot. You get a lot of research funds to do the research. The biggest problem here is do we have a monitoring authority? How much of funds have given? How much of research has come out? How much of that research output has linked to the industries? Okay, to the outcome. Unfortunately, a lot of researchers are repeatable at different institutes. You talk about cancer research, probably the same kind of research being done at different places, at different universities, funding also given by different agencies. So this is somewhere a national level debate also is required when we talk about academia industry interaction. Probably there we should put that some of those projects, which like suppose NITE, which has got very good infrastructure and research background. Suppose a research like NITE is leading to diabetic research in Karnataka, for suppose, or the country level. So then entire funding or resources should be channeled through, and all industries should be connected, and then we should have an industry participation into the academic institution at the initial of the project. These are one of the few things that we need to really debate. I must congratulate NITE to bring this topic into this. From coming to the curriculum or from the student's point of view, I have 3 things which I would like to say. If you look at today the teaching and the research into the institutes, if you look at the fundamental shift of the methodologies of the teaching, one thing we can say is the traditional learning, where we say, that teach me and show me. So students will expect that, what is the subject? Please teach me and also show me how this is going to work. So this is probably a traditional way of teaching. But we need to help them to apply it. Then when they say that, let me practice. So let them practice of any of that subject. Let them put their own mind. So let us don't keep it any boundaries that you should work in within particular limits or something. Let them expose. Let them give a chance to explore it. The most importantly, the action learning. When it comes to the action learning, this is where industry will come into the picture. So then the student will come. First, assess me, what I have learned. Okay, assess me and how can I do it? And probably let me show that what I can do into the industry. and of course the recognitions to the students. These are the fundamentals of things that probably the way it is going, it will drastically shift from academia to industry. From the student's point of view, what is the industry's expectation? Apart from the research problems, what other members have discussed. So there are many problems even I can share, but the thing is, what is that expected students coming to the academia to industry? Of course, they all are very intelligent. They come with good grades, they have good knowledge. So probably, first of all, they should have passion when they're choosing the industry, because that is the biggest problem when the student leave the institutions. They don't have much focus on which industry I should go, because many disciplines can choose many industries. So that is where they should have a passion of what kind of I have interested in. It is not the offers that I am getting today, because they have to see in a long run how I have to build my career. Probably they have to have a passion in particular subject, so they have to do that, and they should have a lot of personalities, like soft skills, which we can say. They should have interpersonal skills. They should have adopt to change management system. They should have more proactive, and they should be good in team leadership, all these things. So many institutions and universities also providing the soft skills as a curriculum part of it, which are very important for the students to come to the industry's point of view. Then just one example I will give, probably I will end with that, how simple it should be and how fast we should be based on the situation. Look at today, the pandemic. Okay, so every day we will get some kind of news. The research is going in such a way that what it was said earlier, yesterday, was proven today it's wrong. And there is a new concept. Either you talk about hygiene perspective, you talk about safety, you talk about medicine, you talk about vaccine, you talk about food. So when we see all these things, the most important thing is the simplest way how we look into this. How best the quick ideas that can generate into a most successful products into the market. So we all know that turmeric is one of the best thing which has been studied. Okay, and it has got all kinds of properties. And it is also mentioned today is about ashwagandha. This is also mentioned about guduchi. These are all products there where government of Ayush is also mentioning that these are the things that people should see. There are a lot of spices in our kitchen that is actually making into a decoctions will improve our immune system. But the only thing is that how quickly academias and industries act on this and bringing it to a very useful dosage forms or product forms to the society that is to be beneficial. Some of the companies acted very fast. When you talk about turmeric, there were products that Doodh Haldi. There were, when you talk about Tulsi, there was a Tulsi Haldi. There were many products that are coming up. The most importantly is the safety of the products, as Dr. Indrani has mentioned about the food security in the opening remarks. The most importantly, I think, as a country, we are well enough of food security. The most important, the quality of the foods, quality system of the foods. And today, consumer is looking more organic than the conventional way of doing this. So with these notes, I will just congratulate Nite and all the students. I will wish them very good luck. And from the part of Himalaya Company, we are always open to help students for any kind of internship and projects. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Babu. It was indeed a pleasure to listen to you. You stressed upon the need for involvement of the industry in curriculum development, where we have more than 50% of the curriculum involved in practical training rather than laboratory, because industry has some issues unlearning the too many things the academia puts into the candidate. And you also mentioned about the need for prevention of redundancy of research projects. Many people working on similar products. And you also spoke about exploring action learning in the curriculum. and safety issues with regard to several of these herbal products which you mentioned. We also noted your welcoming gesture for students into Himalaya Drug House, and we will take that very seriously. Thank you so much for your inputs. Now it's time for our DST representative, Dr. Anita, to give her remarks. Dr. Anita is a scientist in the Department of Science and Technology, managing the Technology Development Program, through which it supports proof of concepts to be converted to technologies, techniques, processes, products to advance into prototypes, along with validation and demonstration. She is a chemistry graduate and a rank holder from Delhi University and a recipient of several national fellowships and awards. She has several publications to her credit, and recently she has been very busy assisting the TDB in managing the call for COVID, as well as an observer to various funding agencies for DST. Dr. Anita Agarwal, we would like to have your remarks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Smita and Professor Indrani and the esteemed gathering. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, yes.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much. So thank you very much for inviting me to this seminar. And indeed, I enjoyed all the deliberations which have taken place. I have listened to the industry speakers who have commented about the need of better processing methods and the improvement in the current processes they are adopting, the need of drying technologies. I agree. Well, there is a need for coordination in the efforts by various scientific ministries. And I would like to inform you the model of National Research Council is being worked upon, where all the funding and all the projects, all the programs will be coordinated by an apex agency who will look into what kind of funding is going. And it's a very good suggestion. You should have some centers of excellence, and all the projects being funded in the area should be linked to those centers of excellence, so that at least the research output can be condensed at one place and can be utilized in a most effective manner. So we also face this problem from the side of funding agencies. A lot of overlap and duplicacy as far as research is concerned is happening in the country. So there is a need to consolidate all those efforts, and technology portal and many more things are being under discussion in the government right now. So indeed, it's a very good suggestion. And moreover, the engagement of students at the graduate level with the industry activities is very important. And I would like to quote one example, since Cafe Coffee Day was here and I am a fan of their coffee. So last year, a paper was published from Europe. I am forgetting the name of which European country. But see, they have, the researchers have developed a mathematical model, and they have worked with the coffee shop for a period of more than 3 years. I think 3 or 4 years they worked with them. And they developed the mathematical model, and they could improve the efficiency of making the coffee or utilizing the beans by almost fourfold, just by controlling the size of the mesh and controlling the size of the ground coffee powder. So people can use offbeat ideas to work with the industry and come up with the solutions and process improvement. The publication is there in the public domain, and you can just you can just check it. So it's all about mathematical modeling being applied to the process of coffee making. So that was a classical example, and I really liked it. So I just went through the publication. So similarly, the technology has a vast scope. Any technology is a platform technology which can be applied at multitude of places. So it's always a pleasure for me to listen to the side of industry And involvement, talks about involvement of industry and academia has been going, since the establishment of GST, because this program, Technology Development Program, is as old as GST. It was started somewhere in 1975. So far, like, I won't say we don't have any success. We have random success stories to share. But if you look at the organized success, so I just don't see that organized success happening in the country. But although the temperament of the people have changed over a period of time since last 2-3 years, and this issue of industry, academia, collaboration, and working together has got a huge momentum. And in GST also, like, if I share the initiatives, the SAFI facilities have been established, one in IIT Delhi and one in, I think, IIT Kharagpur, and third one is, I think, in IIT Bombay. So government has established these facilities, keeping MSMEs, startups, and industry segments in mind. So they will house all the sophisticated instruments, and those instruments and facilities, and they have like crude prototyping facilities also. So they will be available to the industry on 24/7 basis. So we have advised these institutes to run these facilities for 24 hours, and they should be accessible to any industry on a nominal payment basis. So our target audience, our stakeholders specifically were MSMEs and small industries and startups, so who could not afford to have their own R&D centers. So it's all about how we work together and how we strengthen and complement the strength of each other. And I fully agree that all technology development programs, because technology is something you do it for the people. It's not like your basic research. You do the work, you get the accolades, you get the publication, and you are not a knowledge seeker here. So technology has its application part. And worldwide, technology can be taken to masses only by the industry. So industry is the only vehicle which can take the fruits of this technology to the masses. So it's very important whenever we conceive or work on any technology development program or project, so industry should be engaged from the beginning, because they have a different perspective to look at the problem, and academicians have a different perspective. And I also endorse the view that some kind of market survey is very important when you undertake any kind of new activity. And so now is the time where we have to think of multidisciplinary schemes and multidisciplinary projects. That is why we have gone to universities, because they have all kinds of streams, all subjects which are like being taught under one roof. They will have sciences, they will have MBAs, they will have tech people, all working under the umbrella of university. So it's very easy for universities to have these multidisciplinary teams if you have somebody who is helping them at the topmost level. So this was another thought process which went behind creating this text. So the science or any kind of research is no longer a subject expert domain right now. So it's all about fusion. The tool-based research is not recognized anymore. So it's all about the problem-solving research. So you have to think of problems and then find a solution. And for that, you need input from all the disciplines. And DST also, at policy level also, we are talking of scientific social responsibility. We are talking of sharing of infrastructures and other facilities. So TET is also a step ahead which is in consonance with that thinking process. So it was really heartening to listen to the thought process of the industry and how, they are willing to welcome the institutes and universities and ready to have interns in their premises. So that's a very good move, and we believe that through our TEC, this association will turn out to be more stronger and fruitful, and we will be able to achieve some of the dreams and some of the aspirations that have been flagged by our industry experts who have come today and shared their views. So hand in hand, the government, the academia, and the industry will work together, and we believe that we will be able to work for a better ecosystem, better country, and we will definitely achieve some of our national aspirations which have been flagged by our Honorable PM. We will be self-reliant, And food is one area which is like very important and very close to us also. Recently, like for packaging material, we have been instructed by higher authorities to work on a program for packaging material. So we will be working on that program. And since our activities have taken a setback due to COVID-19, so by next year, you can expect a call from DST on packaging materials. Thank you, Dr. Indrani and Professor Indrani and Professor Smita. And I wish you all the best and this TEC all the best and all the industry partners who have come here and shared their views with us. We will definitely, TEC will summarize those views and prepare a report and share with DST, and we will see how to incorporate your suggestions in our policy matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Anita, for the eloquent summarizing of the objectives of tech. I now call upon Professor Dr. Idya Karunasagar to deliver the concluding remarks.
Thank you, Smita, and thanks to all the speakers. I think it has been a great session and it has been a great learning experience for all of us in the academic circles to learn a lot from the industry, to know the real problems that industry is facing and what the academic institutions can do. As Dr. Anita Agrawal said, of course, one of the purposes of this DST Tech is to connect the academia and industry. And as our Honorable Pro-Chancellor mentioned, NITTE has a number of institutions under their umbrella. So there are engineering institutions, there are medical institutions, there are science institutions. So there is some capability within the NITTE system which can address probably some of the questions. But we will also network with other academic institutions. All the problems cannot be solved only by NITTE, but we are also networking with various other institutions and trying to connect them to the industry. So we will try to address some of these issues by networking with the other institutions. And we have also taken note of all the questions that have been put in the chat box. Unfortunately, there's not much time to address these questions right now, but what we will do is we'll try to connect the speakers with the people who have answered these questions, asked these questions. And also we will, some of them are also suggestions for the organizers, so we will try to do that. And we will take this forward and try to initiate maybe some of the research issues. Now, of course, the industry has pointed out a number of things regarding product development, regarding some processes, regarding detection of foreign bodies, regarding packaging materials, and also some issues with respect to the FSSAI came up. Of course, I have been working with FSSAI and in the scientific capacity. So if there are any issues to deal with the FSSAI, I think we can also help to connect the industry with FSSAI. And we have been observing that FSSAI has been proactive in many ways. They have been trying to promote food processing, nutrition, and food testing. So they have a network of laboratories. So we can try to connect the industry with FSSAI through our NITTE DST Technology Enabling Center. So we will try to keep this dialogue going, and we will follow up with you, and maybe we will have some MOU with some of you so that we can continue this interaction. So thank you very much, and we will go forward from here with more interactions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a small request before we disperse. Is it possible for